Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Raheem Hassan. I'm the Director of Technology Alliance Partner Marketing at UiPath, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Driving Digital, Leveraging Legacy, Conversational Automation in Banking and Insurance. So we have two great partners who are on this webinar with us today, Capgemini and Kore.ai. But just before I introduce them, allow me to kind of share with you just a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, we are recording today's webinar, and it will be available for on-demand viewing following the live event. So for everyone who's on the webinar, and for those of you, and for those who registered but were not able to attend, they will be able to view it on demand. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties during the webcast, please let us know by submitting questions through the Q&A area on your screen. All of the presenters will be monitoring it, and we'll try to help you out to the best of our abilities. We also encourage you to submit your questions throughout the webcast. We've allocated some time at the end for Q&A. Just submit them into the questions tab, and we will do our very best to answer any of the questions that are asked. Now, enough from me. Let me do a brief introduction of our subject matter experts today. We have Chad, who joins us from Capgemini. He's the Vice President of Life Insurance and Annuity in North America for the Insurance Global Business Unit, and he will share with us some insights on how AI and RPA are being used to improve personalized customer service. From UiPath, we have Satya, who leads our global insurance practice, and he'll talk about UiPath's automation first mindset and how robots are learning new skills with AI. And last but not least, we have Robin from Kore.ai, who's the SVP of Channels and Alliances, who will talk about human and machine interaction through conversational AI. We also have a short demo at the end of it, which will kind of bring together all of what these three gentlemen will talk about. So that's enough from me, and let me turn it on over to Chad. Chad?
Great, thank you. So I'm going to start at a pretty high level and cover the basics. Satya will dive into some of the details, and between him and Robin provide some demos and dig into the meat of it, and then we'll take some questions and answers. I'm going to start with topic improving personalized service through AI and RPA, and I put a question mark there because you might ask yourself, is that title a mistake? Why would you talk about improving personalized service when you're talking about robotics and automation and artificial intelligence? You're taking the person out of the personalization equation. Well, I'm going to try to answer that, and hopefully by the time I'm done, that will make some sense why that can be a reality. So to start, many insurers and banks today look at automation as a way to reduce headcount and achieve cost savings. A lot of them will look at automation as a way to reduce manual workarounds, speed processing, and in a lot of cases they'll look to avoid. They'll try to not negatively impact service levels. This is really the key. But very few consider how automation, when implemented properly, can potentially improve customer, agent, and employee service. And so I'm going to look at some examples of how chatbots, RPA, cognitive processing, machine learning, AI, or other automation tools can actually improve customer service while reducing costs. And again, I know that's a bit counterintuitive, but we'll dive right into it. So let's start with chatbots and AI for customers. So on the surface, chatbots aren't really a natural fit for banking and insurance, right? Products can be very complex. Back office systems are often legacy. Usually when people are contacting you, it's either to something that will result in a sale or because they're having a service issue. And typically the last thing they want to do is talk to a chatbot. However, when you take a chatbot and give it some more, for lack of a better term, intelligence, by infusing it with machine learning and or artificial intelligence, those chatbots can actually be trained as valuable tools to answer at least the simpler questions via a convenient channel. And conversational chatbots in particular can actually often answer those questions in a way that's not frustrating for the end user. Now, I am going to talk about it at the end of my piece, how it can actually go the other direction and work against you. But first, let's talk about the positives. So if you do this, if you create chatbots that can answer simpler questions initially, and they can get more and more complex over time as they're better trained, but if they can take on the simpler questions, then what can happen is you free up a lot of the people that were answering those questions to focus on more complex questions that really do require a personal touch. So, for example, you don't typically need to talk to a person to change your address or to ask where to find a form on the website or ask how to start a claims process or to open an account. But you do need to talk to a person to do more complex tasks. And so if you don't have to wait on hold, or those people can spend longer on the phone with you, or they're just, better trained people because they're not, dealing with the less complex things constantly, this can really help. It can also help to shorten the queues for those human chat representatives and allows for triaging of requests and routing priority inquiries to humans. And what I mean here that's different is if you go online and say, go to online chat. Well, those chat representatives are often dealing with, 4, 5, 6, 7 people at a time. And most of those questions are things that could be answered pretty easily by a chatbot. So if you, again, reduce the volume of incoming chats, just like you do for phone calls, it can really improve the level of service you get. Now, the nice thing is that as the tools for AI and machine learning get better and better, complex tasks are becoming realistic to handle with these tools. Things like starting a claim or doing a policy inquiry, and we're actually doing that jointly with UiPath and Kore.ai at some customers today. So if we look instead at say, for example, agents or any field representatives, right? not just customers. Chatbots can be an even more interesting tool. So again, when infused with that machine learning or AI, they may not be the best conversationalists, right? You can usually still quite easily trick them into revealing that they're not people, but they're very good at taking questions in and pointing people to the right tool, the right page, the right data. When you're dealing with an employee or a field person that's typically got less of a customer service expectation and more of an expectation of efficiency, then the ability to respond and point people in the right direction can be much less frustrating than, say, a search page or trying to muddle your way through the intranet to find the information you're looking for, or extranet. For people in the headquarters or home office in particular, including the CSRs that answer calls, you may be able to reduce training time, reduce transfers between departments, and more. And what I mean by that is, if you have a chatbot focused on internal usage, you might be able to aim that, and I say might, but this is something that one of our other partners is doing with their software platform. When they implement it for a customer, the CSR of the customer can just type into the chatbot, how do I check the amount that can be borrowed for a universal life policy? And that's a question they would typically ask one of their supervisors. But instead, the chatbot takes over and points them to the right page, takes them right there, highlights the area on the page where they have to fill that in to get the information that's been requested, and that's done. There's no interaction needed with the supervisor anymore. Now, it's not just that avoiding the interaction with the supervisor that's happened. They've now actually improved the customer service by getting that done more quickly, but also you've reduced the training. They don't need, you can train them on this one time, make sure they understand what the purpose of that calculation is, but then you don't really need to worry that they're not going to be able to find it again. For any kind of field rep, the chatbots can perform more complex tasks because the environment is more controlled. So if it's if it's something that the chatbot may bring back the wrong thing, it's more okay because the user would recognize that and say, no, that's not what I'm looking for, as opposed to a customer who may not know that you've steered them in the wrong direction. Now, the RPA in and of itself can actually improve service levels. We've been talking about AI and the importance of AI and machine learning, but RPA itself can actually improve service by automating routine and repetitive tasks, which is how you typically think about it. But when you automate manual workarounds in particular, that's really one of the best ways to improve service. Manual workarounds typically are customer unfriendly, so they can result in long wait times for applications for loans, applications for insurance policies, applications for mortgages, slow claims processing, things like that. I mean, if you think about the mortgage approval process or the approval process for a life insurance policy, these sometimes are measured in days, weeks, or even months. And a lot of that is waiting for human intervention in a queue. And so anything a bot can do to speed that up by taking over a manual process and handling more and more exceptions is critical. And then when you infuse that RPA with AI, it can get even better because then it can learn by essentially, I hate to use the term watching humans because it just sounds super creepy, but essentially that's what they can do. They can literally observe how a human responds to an inquiry and observe it hundreds and hundreds of times and learn what works, what doesn't, what's right, what's not, and just do that task for the human. So automation has a reputation for replacing quote-unquote real customer service, but it is actually a real way to improve customer service when you have processes that run faster, more accurately, and with fewer manual steps. So that can actually improve the customer experience. And the last point I want to touch on is, I keep bringing AI into the discussion. And the reason for that is that automation itself is one way to address things. But in a lot of cases, automation is really just taking bad processes that you have today and making them run faster. And so, yes, you can achieve some of the results by improving the process and running automation on that, or running automation only on processes that are already in good shape. But that being said, I think it's fair to say that machine learning and AI can actually not only be trained to make smarter automation decisions, but can also learn. Obviously with the term machine learning that's implied, but it's important to understand that the longer they're in operation, the more customer friendly they get, the more proper results get returned, etc. Now, AI can make basic automation. Like chatbots are a great example. They can make them conversational, and that's great. But it can start to have this multiplier effect. It gives customers a faster option. They can actually address their needs, which means, as I mentioned earlier, more people that were focused on silly things are now focused on strategic things. But all this being said, it's really important to understand that AI doesn't come out of the box ready to do exactly what you need it to do. It has to learn. It has to be trained. And so you want to be very, very, very careful to make sure that training period is adequate and thorough. We have two internal systems here. We have a lot of internal systems here at Capgemini that focus on our internal customers, and they are AI-infused chatbots. Now, one has been properly trained, and it is excellent. Helps you find exactly what you need. Another one running on the same platform that helps us find material for proposals is inherently frustrating. It doesn't seem to understand anything you say. And a few things have happened with that one. One, it was launched before this training was completed. The assumption was it was for internal use and the training could happen sort of on the fly. The second thing that's happened is that it was trained by offshore resources whose phrasing and grammar was substantially different than the people who are using it onshore. And so the reaction to that chatbot has been absolutely awful. Same platform, same idea, differently trained, and one's been a huge success, one's been a disaster. So again, it's really, really important to have it well trained and test it thoroughly before you release it out into the wild. So with that cautionary note, I'll turn it over to Satya, who is going to cover things from the UiPath perspective. Satya?
Thank you, Chad. Thanks everyone for making it to the presentation. Actually, as Chad was mentioning, the robots sit in between the digital strategy and the digital channels such as Kore.ai, and robots make your digital journey faster and deliver customer experience and efficiency. And let's see how we are enabling the banking and financial services industry and insurance industry to deliver that accelerated digital journey. So primarily, our vision, UiPath's vision, is to bring automation first to you. So when we talk about automation first, definitely it starts with the customer journey, but also that customer journey should deliver the business benefits. So when we talk about the business benefits, there are three different levers we look at. One is a robot for every person. So when we talk about robot for every person, it's the robots are currently considered as moving data from point A to point B. But when we talk about robot for every person, that is where, as Chad was mentioning, it is more about the robots having learning skills and also the collaborative skills. The second lever is about open and free collaboration, and we will go through that and see that how we are enabling it. This is more in terms of how we can democratize even the training of the robots. And third one is robots have learning skills. So the learning, we also come to know that in the recent past from the news that there were two AIs that were having conversation in the Facebook lab, and they have to decommission it because the conversation between two robots became too scary that they created their own language. So we will look at how we will leverage, instead of getting creepier, how do we actually leverage their skills to deliver the business value. So as a conventional thinking, we already know that in the banking, financial services, and the insurance industry, there is a long traditional life cycle of system modernization that's going on to deliver both customer experience and efficiency, operational efficiency. But it is going to be very long, and it takes 5 to 7 years to modernize, and also it takes its own time to migrate the data into the modernization system, and then start building API, and then doing a process re-engineering along with it. It's going to take a very long time. Though we said that in this presentation that ROI is 1 to 3 years, and we know that traditionally it becomes more than 5 to 7 years to achieve that. But this 1 to 3 years is more in terms of even in a modern system, modern core systems like policy administration or core banking or claim systems. Even if you have modern systems, building those APIs and bringing multiple systems together is going to take 1 to 3 years and to get your return on investment. Whereas when we talk about automation first mindset, it is more about business-driven approach rather than a technology-driven approach or a traditional-driven approach. And wherever it is required, can we use UI instead of the API approach? But definitely, API approach will be applicable on a longer-term basis, but quickly start with a UI-based approach. And then wherever it is required, can we do an ad hoc automation and also look for robots for the automation economics. So can we do a large chunk of work like 80-20 rule? Wherever there is a large chunk of work that can be automated, we can start that as a quick win, but also look at how to extend that to deliver end-to-end fulfillment to deliver the value and quicker return on investment. And also, we have seen many banks and insurance customers of ours are even using subject matter experts as the new developers, because the skills that we bring in is absolutely creating citizen developers who are able to develop the process and leverage the technical developers purely for integration purpose, so that the automation is fully business-led, as well as the value is mapped on the onset of the process definition itself. And in the current scenario, predominantly, I would not call everyone is doing that way. Predominantly, in the banking, insurance, and in the financial services, many of the companies and our customers, and we also see who are not our customers but also implemented other RPAs, have been starting with pure high volume approach, as I mentioned earlier, but they are also stuck with the high volume approach. So main processes that are currently automated are in accounting and finance, HR, those sort of back-end processing, and very few processes have been automated in the core processes. And also, far fewer processes have been automated in the customer engaging processes. So provided that, how do we move from a simple RPA approach of back office, where RPA is going to emulate human, to RPA plus AI, which will assist the human, so that we can make the RPA plus AI help in delivering business benefits right from back end to middle office to the front office. Coming to the skills, the AI skills that we are looking at, there are two types of AI skills. One AI skill is about how do we enable the business process, and second type of AI skill is about embedded some of the custom skills that are very specific to the business. So we look at for the embedded skills for the UiPath RPA, we are looking at 4 different skills. These are all pure play business process related skills. So an example, these four are document understanding. So understanding of a document not as a template, not as a structured document, but as a policy document, for example, rather than being looking at it as a pure play form. The robot should be able to understand this is an accord form, right, for a business owner's policy application. So that's sort of a document understanding. The next one is about visual understanding. Visual understanding goes 2 ways. One is that the robot will see the laptop or desktop or virtual machine as the human see that, which will make easier for automating in Citrix and black screens and any of those environments. Whereas that will also embedded an AI, that visualization skill will also help in capturing the end-to-end process regardless of the underlying system and see that where all the inefficiencies reside. For example, many times we have seen 60% of the contact center contact center efforts are spent in post-call volume. So the visual understanding will help in understanding those post-call processes and remove those efficiencies. And next one is process understanding. With respect to process understanding, it is about taking those visual understanding and embedding those gaps, addressing those gaps in the process. So we the UiPath robot already work with some of the business process, some of our business process partners, and you can go and have a look at it in our Go market, which is UiPath, go.uipath.com, where we provided some of our partners in the process understanding, and then conversational understanding. This is where we have partners such as Kore.ai, where the robots communicate with the conversational artificial intelligence and act as a representative in the backend system. And then from the process understanding, there are also some of the skills that is usually developed custom by the banks and insurance companies. Some of this, again, are typical example is of fraud management. One of the insurance customers use their fraud management analytics, and then based on that, they trigger certain actions from the robot. Another customer uses smart email. A banking customer uses a smart email, where the email comes to a common inbox, and from the common inbox, the robot picks up those emails and then pushes those information to NLP platform and obtains the information from the NLP platform, and based on that, it classifies the emails and also triggers the transaction in the contact management and core systems. So these sort of skills that are very specific to the business, that business scenario, can also be integrated with the robots. And as a part of it, in the recent Google Next 2019 conference, UiPath has also announced AI Fabric to actually deploy those customer-specific or industry-specific custom skills. And how it is? Is it really going to be technology-driven, or is it going to be business-driven? Coming to that, the UiPath Studio, the drag and drop AI, is going to be in making it easy for the business users to actually do a drag and drop well within the process, and then the last mile connectivity will be taken care by the technocrats who can come and do the integration. So it is about giving business 80% of control, so that they will know that exactly how the process flows, and then giving the last 20-mile connectivity to the technology consultants to come and plug the gap. And what we see is specific to chatbot and RPA. We see a very good confluence between this chatbot and RPA, because as I mentioned earlier, the banks and insurance companies need not wait for 5 to 7 years to actually digitize. And many times we have seen that the insurers who have or banks who have launched their apps have also seen that very low adoption rates. When we say adoption rates, more in terms of transactions. So the adoption rate for many insurers are around 35 to 40%, whereas banks, it is plateauing around 60 to 70%. And even recently, one of the studies that says that though the customers on an average have 40 to 50 applications in their mobile, they use only 5 or 6, and most of them are social media apps frequently. So given that, it is for a insurer or a banker, it is easy to launch chatbot that provides better engagement as the customer demands, and also not to hook on technical debt of infrequently used mobile apps. So that also gives the chatbot and robot confluence also gives them capability to automate the modern system as well as the legacy system, and to switch over the systems as they modernize. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity, and I will give the dais to Robin.
Thank you very much, Satya. Robin Kieron with Kore.ai. I think Chad and Satya have done a great job of setting the stage around how the point here of bringing service to the point of impact, taking traditionally RPA that's serving a back office function and execution, and exposing and delivering that to a person that's typically in the front office. So hopefully I'll explain a little bit more about how we do that. First, you may not have heard of Kore. So my slide's still building. Here we go. Kore.ai, we're about a 5-year-old company. First couple of years dedicated to research and platform engineering, launched just around 3 years ago. We're providing sole focus around conversational AI, so our customers are able to deliver a conversational experience to people. And definitely that includes customers. That could be a retail bank customer, that could be a commercial bank customer. But that could also be a supplier, it could be a person in various interactions with a brand. We have around 75 global 1,000 customers covering various verticals. Roughly 40%, 45% of our revenues from banking and insurance. Private company, around about 250 employees. So again, our mission is very much, and our vision is to enable a chatbot, an interaction between a human and systems through natural language. And so our capability is to provide companies with this conversational AI platform that they can then use to be able to increase service levels, support humans, suppliers, customers, etc. So let's say, I think again, Chad's covered this pretty well. Why would we do this? I think we all know that a good experience typically returns roughly a 3x lifetime value from a customer, maybe 6 or 7 times more likely to respond to promotions, new credit card offers, new banking products and solutions. But conversely, a bad experience, and we've all had them, is typically going to drive customers away from you to an organization that's better able to support their needs. So why conversational AI? The ability to increase engagement. Certainly there is a benefit in cost reduction, but what we see from our customers is that the greater benefit to them is the increase in engagement from their customers, from their employees, from their business partners. And this is really why we're doing it. So to kind of drill into a few, why would you have already RPA and now extend that to the front office? Well, it's to drive additional execution by RPA, but to expose that to a customer that actually understands what their issue is. Somebody's calling through IVR, somebody's at your website, somebody's using your mobile app. They're the ones that understand what their problem is, and they're the best ones to explain and immediately provide both self-service and responses to their needs at that point of service. Of course, to personalize, to reduce that tedious process of having to repeat your problem time and time again as you get bounced around from department to department. To have a chatbot that's able to understand the rules, the procedures, and be able to address on demand right there their need. Maybe to also create a ticket so that case can be followed up on, but ultimately to provide an answer, whether that's a policy, a procedure, how do I set up a new bill pay, as well as ultimately to create something in the back end that changes their address, sets up that bill pay, gets information from the system, what's my balance, what's my deduction, how do I make a claim, and even initiate that claim. To provide that support at source, you're eliminating redundancy, you're increasing the level of engagement, you're also reducing the costs that otherwise an agent would have to step in. This is very much about leveraging context through a conversation to be able to truly understand what somebody's trying to do. It may add and augment from information that you previously have. Go and get that information from a system of record, include that in a conversation. If this is the second time somebody's come to you to solve a problem, again, don't expect them to repeat that. That's annoying. Get that information, use that as context to be able to say, hey, I saw that you were in touch with us last week and you had a problem. Is that still the problem that you have? Maybe I can help you more. So leverage that experience, that personalization, both during a conversation as well as leverage information that you've had from prior interactions. Of course, this then provides the fastest time to value. Leveraging RPA, where there's a robot that's already in place that's connected to a system, is a very pragmatic approach versus, let's say, building a whole new set of APIs and web services that would need to be consumed. If you already have RPA in place, leverage that and now extend it to the front office at the point of service. So, what is a chatbot? I'm sure most have had some interaction. Undoubtedly, you will be seeing a lot more interaction, both internally within organizations and also from a customer domain. So a chatbot should, of course, be able to talk, express through natural language, understand what it is the person's trying to do through the place where it's convenient for the user. So that means don't force somebody to go to a website. Don't force somebody to go to a mobile app. If they're conveniently using Facebook every day, then if appropriate for your business, have a chatbot in Facebook, or have a chatbot in Twitter, or have a chatbot that's accessible through email. Or, of course, have a chatbot in a website, in a mobile app, or even through IVR. Don't make a millennial call an IVR. Don't make somebody that does like to use IVR and force them to download a mobile app. It won't work. So a chatbot should exist where it's convenient and relevant to the person. Chatbots should be able to discern emotion. If the person's getting more and more frustrated and confused, it's the opposite effect. At that stage, you should discern that and offer to transfer the person to an agent. Of course, you need to learn over time, both the expressions, the way that people are expressing their intent, as well as the things that they're trying to do, so that next time the chatbot's been educated and can execute additional sets of capabilities. And again, context. Let me give you an example. If I said to Chad, hey, next time I'm in New York, let's meet up at Starbucks. He says yes. A couple of weeks go by, or even in that same conversation, I'll say, well, where's the nearest one? Well, where's the nearest one is not necessarily a full expression, but there's context because I've already said, let's meet at the nearest Starbucks. So the notion of context, or if you like, memory, is very important to human dialogue. It is equally important for a chatbot to be able to understand and comprehend. There was a question earlier around specific use cases. So let me give you a few examples of how a chatbot is interacting. I may want to say, hey, what are all the claims I've made over the past 6 months, 2 years? Or what are the interest charges I've had? Or what are my transactions? The ability, of course, for a chatbot to understand that intent with however myriad ways that people express that. What do they spend? Show me the money, phrases that people actually use to be able to then go off, get that information from a system and display it to a person in the channel that's convenient to them. So listing information, policies, procedures, what's my, how do I transfer money? How do I set up a new bill pay? The ability to, again, comprehend, come back with an authorized, approved, clear statement around how I can perform that particular function, changing a beneficiary, changing my address, etc. But policies and procedures, knowledge. We put that into a knowledge graph with the ontology of your organization so that the chatbot can truly understand the context. If I'm saying I'm dealing with my checking account and say to the bot, well, what's the interest rate? Or my savings account, what's the interest rate? It would be relevant to come back and give me the interest rate of a savings account. Whereas if I was dealing with credit card transactions, I may have the same question, what's my interest rate? But the context is different. I'm dealing with credit cards, therefore the bot should understand and come back and give you the interest rate of my credit card account. So knowledge. Dialogue. This is the interactive variable business rules and workflow and logic in order to support a person's need. Again, many of these are in the context of an end consumer, maybe retail banking or commercial banking, but can equally be applied to somebody inside of the organization. It could be an agent that has a bot supporting them as they support their customers. And then finally, we believe a chatbot should be proactive, the ability to, based on an event, based on something that a person said, tell me when this happens. The bot should be listening out, and then when something that they've asked to be told happens, the chatbot should present itself in the channel of choice to the person to say, hey, something's happened, your claim still needs some additional information, would you like to provide that to me? So to be proactive. Now, in the interest of time, I would normally spend hours going through the details on this slide. The point here is the platform that Kore provides is an end-to-end full life cycle, build, test, train, deploy, manage, and analyze. Within the platform, there are many components. Of course, natural language processing being rather important. We have 3 NLP engines with different methods. But it's not just about making a web service to an NLU, to a natural language understanding web service, and then coming back, and then there's magic. A platform provides the ability to truly define, test, train, and manage, store, encrypt, understand sentiment, understand the ways that humans talk to each other with the intelligence required around, I may be going through setting up a new bill pay, and halfway through, I don't remember how much money I've got to pay that bill, so I want to pause, find my balance, and then continue and resume with my previous task. These are human natural characteristics that we believe are critical to be able to provide the consumer, the agent, the employee, the supplier, etc., just as if it was a person talking to a person. So next up, we have a brief video that should actually show what we're talking about here. So I'm going to press play. This is about 4 minutes. So bear with us. It's narrated, and hopefully this will bring it all and make sense. Here we go.
I'd like to talk to Search Loan's Google Assistant.
Okay, let's get the test version of Search Loans.
Hello, I am Search Loans Google Assistant. How can I help you today?
Who is offering lowest interest rate for personal loans?
Acme Bank is offering personal loans up to $50,000 United States dollars at 5.99 APR. Would you like to contact bank for more information?
Yes.
An email has been sent to kartik.tadikonda@.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As we can see here, the customer has received an email from the bank with the link to launch Chatbot for the next part of the process. In this stage, the Chatbot will begin engaging the customer to first submit their personal details and then moves to questions on loan requirements and purpose. The customer is now being asked to submit documents, for example, a valid proof of identity and a proof of income. Note that we've used W-2, which is a US tax filing form, but we could also use other tax filing forms such as SA-302 or PAP-60. As a last step in this stage, the Chatbot is also gathering bank account details for the loan disbursement. Once all the details have been provided by the customer, our next stage of loan processing will begin. While Chatbot was engaging the customer, our personal loan robot was capturing customer responses and documents. Specifically, the robot will apply OCR to extract and verify customer details from identity proofs. Additionally, it will extract key information from the submitted W-2 that will help the bank ascertain customer's loan eligibility. Using the information, the robot moves to preparing loan application on bank's internal system. One of the key decision points in this process is credit assessment. To achieve this, the robot will obtain credit history and scores for the prospect from external websites. In this case, the customer is eligible for instant approval since they have a credit score of 776, which is above the threshold of 600 set by the bank. The robot will convey this decision and the loan terms, including tenor and interest rate, to customer through Chatbot. Since our customer has already been approved, they can end the session here, or they may have some questions about the loan terms. They can choose to chat with live agent in the same session. We can now see the chat from live agent's perspective, who in this case is a loan specialist from the bank. During this conversation, live agent has full context of the case and information shared by the customer thus far. In this case, our customer wants to understand if they can change the payment due date. While customer is asking this question, the agent assistant provides likely response to bank's live agent, which enables them to resolve the customer query at the earliest. Here, for example, we can see how agent assistant is providing the live agent with summarized response for customer's question on missing payment on due date. These quick responses ensure a uniform experience for the customer throughout the engagement and reduces the chances of any abandonment of the application by the customer. Once all the questions have been clarified, live agent will seek confirmation on loan terms from the customer. Here we can see the customer has been given a go-ahead on the loan agreement generation. And as a last step of the process, the loan agreement and detailed terms and conditions, including the payment schedule and other covenants, will be automatically generated and sent to the customer's email address.
All right. Thank you very much for that insight, Chad, Robin, and Sathya. Just to the audience, right? If you have any questions, please input them into the questions section of your chat. We do have a number of questions here, and I think we'll direct the first one to Sathya. It says that where are you seeing a robot on every desktop or with every employee?
So robot on every desktop is of two types. The first type is wherever there is an attended automation and there are unattended automations. So in terms of attended automation is where we are seeing the middle office employees or back office employees are able to use the attended automation for some of the use cases that include bill submissions and also a report creation, those sort of scenarios. And there is also, even in unattended automation, the robot for every desktop, it's not just a robot per se, it is also robot plus AI. That is where we are talking about chatbot plus RPA working together to make that robot for every person possible.
Great. Thank you, Sathya. Robin, you talked about some of the use cases, but and I know we can't name the clients, but CAP, UiPath, and Core are working with a couple of large global enterprises. Can you talk about some of the use cases that we've delivered together at some of those companies? Chad, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I think that, and I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear the entire question. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions that we were asked were about use cases, and I know that CAP, UiPath, and Core have worked with a number of customers. We can't name them, but can you talk about kind of the use cases where we've delivered joint solutions?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for repeating that. I appreciate it. So a great example is with the life insurance claims process. It's a very complicated process, and oftentimes people just don't even know where to start. They don't know, for example, the policy number. They don't know the amount that was insured. They don't know who the beneficiary of the policy was. So just starting that process is oftentimes about just getting the initial contact with the person that's reporting the loss. And so a chatbot is a great way to kick off the process, get the whatever initial information the person has, and depending on a whole bunch of factors, it can be routed to the right place. So if there is a policy and it's over a certain amount of value, it can be routed to a particular type of specialist. If it's a small value policy that doesn't require much of any human intervention, you might be able to kick off a straight through process of claims. So those types of scenarios where the chatbot can triage some information up front and route it to the right process, whether that's straight through process or human process, or just within the chatbot itself, is a great example of a very, very good use case where we're seeing a lot of usage in the market. Other specific use cases that we've seen have included, like the one I mentioned, which is using it to both reduce training for internal staff, but also to help reduce the need to reach out to supervisors or managers in order to escalate or get information that might otherwise have been addressed in training, or may have been addressed in training, just long since forgotten. But that's another great use case within within each sector and even subsector, commercial banking, retail banking, life insurance, property casualty insurance, health insurance. There are tons and tons of very, very specific use cases. A great one for health insurance is claim status updates. So we talked about initiating a claim on the life insurance side. Health insurance claims, oftentimes there's all kinds of, I don't want to say disputes, but differences in amounts paid versus amounts owed, explanations of benefits that are difficult to understand, and so on. And so an excellent use case for health insurance is claim status updates. And that can be either proactive or reactive, where the customer reaches out or RPA triggers an event with the policyholder. So it's hard to even know where to start how to answer that question, because there are so many. But happy to take offline questions. We can provide contact information if it's helpful.
Thanks, Chad. Satya, Robin, anything to add from your perspective?
I would echo Chad. It's almost difficult to focus on the 1 or 2 or 10 or 50 things. I would certainly look at this as if you're looking for ROI as a driver, companies may have thousands of employees, but you typically have hundreds or thousands or millions of customers. So from an ROI perspective, those that will interact with customers will likely drive the higher ROI. But I'll certainly echo on claims, first notice of loss, claim status, missing data within a claim, account management, policy, deduction information, pretty much, I think, as Chad described in both insurance and in banking, setting up new bill pays, paying money, being told when certain events happen, like fraud incidents and balance alerts and new promotions for credit cards and services. The list kind of does go on and on.
Great. So we have a couple of questions coming in about fraud, right? So with so many frauds happening on a daily basis, how is AI and automation being used together to prevent fraud and risk in the insurance space? I'm not sure who's best to answer that one.
Yeah, I can take that. So with respect to fraud in insurance, let's talk about 2 things. One is very specific, broader one, right? Say, for example, anti-money laundering is also one of the risks. So if we have even published a workflow when we go to that can be found in our Go market, which is called go.uipath.com, to find out anti-money laundering and by going through a Know Your Customer KYC validation, and also one of a bank in Japan is connecting the robots to World Check and also validating those anti-money laundering there. Coming to the insurance, very specific to insurance fraud, many times settling the claims faster itself will prevent the fraud predominantly. But also there are customers, insurers in UK that are using for the car claim, auto claims, wherever they suspect fraud. the robots are able to go to multiple websites, identify similar to what the video we have shown in banking, similar to that. It goes through multiple websites, and many of those websites like GLG were not even able to provide any APIs. So it's able to go through those websites and pull the data and assemble the data and validate and see that with the minimum parameters which needs to be set to fraud. By that, they have avoided more than 67% of false fraud. There are two ways, right? One is while avoiding fraud, we should also avoid false flags. So they have avoided 67% of false flags, whereas the robots also increased 18% of detecting right fraud instances.
So, Rahim, I would add just a comment on that. When you're making a claim, typically you're following a static process. There are various things to provide, and the rules are all for one. Whereas if a chatbot's helping you submit a claim, the chatbot logic can, based on certain responses, certain answers, certain insights about the person and the details of the claim, the chatbot can go down multiple different paths and could ask for additional information right there and then.
Great. All right. In the last 4 minutes here, let's see if we can squeeze in a few more answers here. Are there any documents that includes best practices to guide development and implementation of AI solutions? Any thoughts on that, or is that something that we want to follow back up with?
Yeah, I
So
think.
Chad,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Satya. Go ahead.
No, I want Chad because this comes from two different perspectives. One is from a technology standpoint and consulting standpoint. So Chad, I would invoke your thoughts on this from a consulting standpoint, and I can address the technology standpoint.
Yeah, so great point, Satya. From a consulting standpoint, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a document that has best practices because it's, you hate to say constantly evolving, but it is, and there's not one standard practice for AI. Each solution is somewhat different. So, for example, there are AI solutions that are focused on workflow. There are AI solutions that are focused on conversational chatbots. There are AI solutions that are focused on broader machine learning. And each one requires some pretty different best practices. So, for example, there's a whole group called computer vision, where you have to feed the system images by the thousands so that it can learn the differences between types of images. That requires a hugely different approach than training a conversational chatbot, which may, for example, quote unquote, listen in on chat conversations, or may, maybe trained with a model first. So there's not, I'm sure that there's been some great articles written and some great white papers on best practices, but I would argue that they just don't apply broadly. There are probably some great general, recommendations, but the difference from one platform to the next, one type of platform to the next, and so on, really makes it impossible to say that there's a particular document that I'd recommend.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
Great insight, great context, Chad. I'm sorry, Safi, go ahead.
Yeah. So with respect to technology, again, as the AI technology is in multiple places, with respect to that, the whole idea is, from our proposal is to look at the overall business strategy and align the technology strategy to that will be a better way to go. And also when we talk about AI, Kore.ai, as it includes not just a chatbot but also multi-channel. Look at your AI strategy into platforms like Kore.ai, which provides you a much more extensibility in the future.
Great. So we have a handful of questions that we did not get to. So our commitment to you is, for those of you who've asked them, as part of the follow-up, we'll respond back to you directly. Chad, Sathi, Robin, really appreciate kind of your involvement here and your insight. Looking forward to us working together to continue the work that we're doing together with clients out there. You will receive a link to the recording of this session, and you'll be able to download the slides also. And we also have we'll have contact information in the download if you need to follow up with any of the subject matter experts on this call. So everyone, thank you for participating and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.